Hi, my name is Rachel and I'm a student teacher on the Secondary Art and Design PGCE. And like many of my course mates, I'm a practicing artist. My work explores contemporary themes using mixed media. In this 5-minute presentation, I'm going to discuss creativity in the classroom. Let's skip back quickly and ask what creativity is and what is it that I'm judging these works by. Ken Robinson, a man who has led national and international projects on creative and cultural education, describes creativity as the process of having original ideas that have value. This is the definition I generally follow when thinking about creativity, and I've included an image of Yayoi Kusama's work, something which I think is highly creative. So creativity, having original ideas of value, isn't just something reserved for art, but it is something that can be brought into all subjects across the curriculum. Thinking more specifically about our lessons, where do we find creativity in the classroom? After speaking to other members of my course, we think there are two forms of creativity in the classroom. First off, encouraging creativity within students, and then the second being teachers teaching creatively. I've included an image on this slide of work by Saigo Chong, who uses gunpowder to create his work. But it all comes down to why you should care about this. Why is creativity important to us as teachers and bringing creativity into the classroom? We've learnt a lot on our courses, so why should creativity be at the forefront? Well, for our students learning to be creative, not only is being creative going to assist them in their learning and development now, but in the future, our students will be entering an unpredictable world, even more so now after COVID-19, where creativity will undoubtedly be invaluable in securing and maintaining jobs. The World Economic Forum said that creativity will become the third most important skill workers need in their jobs during 2020. And then for teachers teaching creatively, well, with the amount of work we as teachers already put into teaching, can we really afford not to be creative in our teaching? We want the students to learn and take note, and being creative in our teaching is a way to capture our students' attention and make things memorable. On the right, I've included an image of Helen Kammock's work, which explores complexities in social histories. In true teacher fashion, I want to end this presentation with a reflection. With a definition of creativity as the process of having original ideas of value, let's reflect on our own teaching. Have we in the past, and can we in the future, think of original ways of teaching which positively affect our students? Have you already been nurturing students' creativity in the classroom? Or can you see opportunities for encouraging original ideas of value in lessons in the future? I think it's important for both students and teachers to understand that creativity is not something you have or you don't. It's something which takes effort and practice, with first attempts often being unsuccessful. But through knowing this, we can support and encourage our students to persevere and tell ourselves that teaching creatively may fail the first time, but it's worth this failure to progress our teaching and to have a lasting impact on our students. On the right hand side here, you can see work by Chris Ofili, who uses elephant dung in his work and explores issues of Black identity and experience.
Hi everyone, my name's Anna and I'm one of the student teachers on the Art and Design PGCE course this year, and I'm going to talk a bit about cross-curricular practice within and around art and design education. Like lots of people on my course, I was a practicing artist before I enrolled in a PGCE and wanted to work in schools, and my specialism is sculpture and installation and collage. So art and design is really a subject that lends itself to cross-curricular ways of working. and has in both historical and contemporary context been a reflection of culture. And those reflections of culture act as reminders. And those reminders exist even when maybe we would rather they didn't, and they send powerful messages about the state of diversity in the arts, both historically and now in the present. The image on your left is of Edward Colston's statue being thrown into a river in Bristol this week. And all of the issues that are raised by that very, historically important piece of art that is perhaps exactly where it deserves to be, but no less, is reflective of an industry and of a culture that historically has only allowed very, very specific groups of people to be creative and to have work displayed in museums and galleries. The image on your right is of the British Museum, and when you really start to look into the architecture and the way that that building was designed, what you come away with is essentially a building that was designed and was built in order to make certain groups of people feel like they didn't belong there. It's so grand and it's so, ridiculously extravagant that it was made essentially for a very select group of people to be able to participate in creativity. And as art and design teachers, we grapple with these issues in our contemporary art and design classrooms. There are so many issues still with the art industry around who it is that is allowed to make art, who it is that is able to access those spaces. So as well as being teachers of technical skill like painting and drawing, which of course we do, we're also teachers of politics and of history and of activism, because our subject lends itself to that. One of the things that really attracted me to studying art and design is that it's never really made me choose between which of those things it is that I'm interested in and which of those things it is that I want to represent in my own work, but also study in other people's work. On this slide, we have an example from Molly Skinner, who is a member of our cohort, and she led a project in her first placement school around ceramics and virology. She had a visiting virologist and ceramicist come in and talk to students about his practice and how he uses ceramics as a way of understanding virology. Ceramics in itself, there are so many cross-curricular links. You've got chemistry, you've got measuring, you've got to get the right proportion of clay to water. Is it going to explode in the kiln? Is the kiln too hot? You've got maths, all of these things that are really present in that particular material as a teaching resource anyway, but was built on by getting the students to make viruses, to look at the structure of them and to represent them in clay. In this next slide, this is a project that I led in my first placement school, and it was around installation and environmentalism. We teamed up with the Climate Action Group, which was a club at the school run by the geography department for students that were interested in environmental issues within the school, and they collected recycled paper so that we could use recycled materials for this particular project. And then the students made this, which you can see on the right as a window display. And it was the students really taking a bit of a stand against the school, who had recently installed spikes so that birds couldn't land and sit on the roof. And the students were saying, actually, well, why should we disrupt a place for these birds to be? Why should we do that? So that was really interesting. Contemporary art is a really useful resource within the classroom, and I think especially if you're thinking about cross-curricular projects, it can be a really, really good way of explaining certain concepts. So this project is by an artist called Otobong Nikanga, who is a Nigerian-born artist, and her studio is now based in Antwerp in Belgium. This project is amazing, Carved Flow. There is so much going on, and it's really difficult to try and sum it up. You've got sort of ecology, and then she talks about her relationship as a woman to materials. But what the project did was that it set up soap factories in Athens Castle and Nigeria, and the local community came in and they were taught how to make this soap, and they used natural resources from the areas that they were in and within these communities. And then it was later sold in galleries, and the money was used to maintain these factories, and the wealth was kept by the communities. And the project really aimed to challenge issues around Western narratives of production and consumption. You've got so much going on there just in terms of business, in terms of geology and ecology. And it's also an example of a really, really good socially engaged project, which is now a requirement for Arts Council funding. Most projects that are funded by the government or funded by galleries tend to have the expectation that they will engage with the local community. And you can see that done in sort of lesser and greater extents, but this is an example of a really, really good project. If you're trying to talk about business in certain rural areas and how it relates to our idea of sort of consumerism in the West. And then we've got Bouchra Khalili, who is a Moroccan-French artist who's currently based in Berlin. So her project, the Mapping Journeys project, is a series of 8 videos, and it tracks the journeys of 8 people who've been forced by political circumstances to move through the Mediterranean basin, which is where she went and where she met them. And the artist engaged with these people in transit hubs in Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East. And in the videos, what you see and hear is the subjects' voices and them drawing their particular journeys. So you see their voices, you hear their stories, and you see their hands, but you never see their faces. It's all about that sort of idea of anonymity, and that the artist really wanted to protect these people, but talk about their experiences in a really global sense. And then the last slide is an artist that I've used in the classroom in that particular project about environmentalism, but sort of more broadly in photography as well. His name's Olafur Eliasson. Lots of people might have seen his exhibition that he had in real life in the Tate this year that was on for quite a few months. I think it was about 6. So he's a Danish-Icelandic artist with a studio based in Berlin. And he's known for his sculpture and large-scale installations, but really sort of prominent environmental concerns run through all his work. So the images on your left are of Icewatch. This is where he shipped tons of glacial ice and then melted them in central London. And I've got a quote here from a student that I taught in year 8 who I think has probably said it much better than me. So he probably put it there so people couldn't ignore it because it's in another place they don't have to think about, which I thought was really, really lovely. And she's really got the sense that, you know, this artist has used materials in London to represent something happening that maybe we don't think about in a city in another part of the world. And then on the right, his Glacier Melt series, which are images that have been taken in Iceland throughout periods of time to track the melting of ice and our impact on the environment. So those are just some artists that you could use if you were thinking about incorporating art into your classroom practice. The other thing to mention is that education and engagement departments in major galleries in London do often have resources for schools, do often have education packs. So it's not as if you would have to go and look at an art exhibition and start from nothing. A lot of this stuff is available already. And at the end, I've put some links to the projects that I've mentioned, and I hope it's helpful.
Hello, I'm Holly, and I'm a student art teacher at UCL. I'm going to talk to you about how teachers can be more creative in their work. I'm sure you've got some ideas. These are just a few of ours which we've come up with in our course. And I've also looked at a report that looked at artists in schools and how they do things differently. So, what's one thing that you would say to teachers who want to be more creative? That's what we asked the art and design course. They said, do the opposite. Ask yourself why you normally do something and come up with ways to do things differently. So if you normally sit down, stand up. If you normally have the tables in one formation, move them around. Don't just do the same things that you've done because you've always done them. Remember that you are creative. So as a teacher, teaching is a creative profession, but remember to nurture your own creativity and take the time to do that if you can. Trust students to have their own voice. Give them the space to say what they want to learn. Let them lead the lesson and the curriculum. Remember that creativity isn't about getting pupils to create an accurate description. It's about them seeing things from their own perspective. So independent thinking and freedom of thought. That's what we want. And lastly, and maybe most importantly, take risks. Remember to experiment. Remember that things can go wrong and it is okay to fail. We learn from those things, but if we don't take risks, that's never going to happen. Change the environment. One of the main things artists working in schools do is they move around the classroom differently and they don't stay in the classroom all the time. So try to get out of the classroom as part of your learning. And this image is from a student-led photography project, learning about history, geography, and culture of a local area. by letting students decide where they were going to go. Provoke and disrupt. So, do something unexpected. Do something a bit bizarre or eccentric, maybe. Provocation is defined as an object, image, sound, person, event, or action which is deliberately ambiguous. Play. Sometimes when we get to secondary school, it's all about being grown up. We forget about the importance of play, but permission to play is so important. You can incorporate the absurd, a light-heartedness, satire, laughing in class. Everything doesn't have to be serious. This artist resource by artist Jacob V. Joyce gives children permission to say that an artwork in a gallery is boring, to behave how they're not meant to behave, to make what other people might think would be silly, loud noises in a space they're not meant to do that in. Often in schools we can have set ways of behaving, and breaking out of that can be a really creative thing. An easy one for you, use visuals. Start your lesson with an image you like from a film, from a TV program. It could be a painting that you like, and ask open-ended questions about it. Questions where there isn't one right or wrong answer. The texts of our lives. Artists working in schools also made use of having a rich sense of narrative and a commitment to community. In this slide, again, artist Jacob V. Joyce worked with young people in a local youth club to learn with them about Black histories and their own histories that they wanted people to know about in their area. Some links and resources for you. And remember that creativity is not just for art teachers, it's for everyone.